Program complete. Auto-engage time sequence synchronized.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the episode of Jamie Plays with me, Jamie, and today we are looking at a time-lapse of the Delta Quadrant map in Star Trek New Horizons. So I've done a previous video where the Borg, the Hirogen and the Krenim were going at each other, and in that game the Borg absolutely wiped the floor very quickly with both the Hirogen and the Krenim. In fact, basically within the first 100 years it was already over with, it was already been decided. So what I was thinking is, why don't we do a rematch where, again, we have the same maps, we have the same starting conditions, and just see kind of what happens. And actually, I was really surprised with the outcome of this video, because it's whatever you're expecting to happen, it's probably not going to happen. So as we can see here, sped up at the moment, we have the Krenim and the Borg currently kind of going after each other and exchanging some territory there. We have the Hirogen, who have been kind of peacefully expanding in the southern part of the map. I'm sorry, it's a little bit difficult to see the colors of the Hirogen hunters, for example. It just doesn't sit very well on the black map. There's nothing I can do about that. That's kind of hard-coded into the civilization by the mods. Usually on most maps it wouldn't matter because it would be surrounded by other empires that have some sort of color, so it'd be easier to see. But just basically know the Hirogens are really expanding in the south. They're being very industrious, as you can see, especially on the periphery of their territories, kind of to the south and to the west, where they've got kind of a single ship or a single fleet moving around. They're very much expanding in those directions. The Borg are making a push into Krenim space, pushing farther north. Yeah, and that's kind of stopping them from expanding at the moment, whereas the Krenim are still expanding where they probably shouldn't be. They should be focused on kind of this war and putting up a good defense against the Borg, but that's not what they're doing at the moment. So that war is now over. The Borg are now starting to expand again. The Hirogens are still continuing to expand. And we will see the Krenim kind of bounce back a little bit as well. They'll be able to expand, get some resources, and continue going like that. So you might have noticed the Hirogen Hunters actually now has two logos on the map. So we have the one in the farthest region in the south, that's Hirogen Hunters, and then the tiny little one as far east as we can go so far on the map is also Hirogen Hunters. There is a slight disconnect between the two areas of spaces. I think there's like a one system or two system space between the two, which is why they have two separate logos rather than just kind of one centralized logo at the moment. But as we can see, the Krenim and the Borg are both pushing to expand. The Borg are now kind of filling in that gap that's currently between Hirogen space, or the two enclaves of Hirogen space. So it looks like the Hirogens have also really pushed far to the south of the map as well, of this quadrant. As you can see, sometimes we'll see fleets in the kind of, if you look at the very, very bottom of the screen, there'll be a couple of individual fleets that are down there. Those are construction ships and science ships that we can see that are moving around. And I think they've just now reached the very center of the southern part of the map. And as you can also see, their logo has also disappeared, and I believe that's because the Krenim has taken their space in the east. Although, of course, because of the colors, it's a little bit difficult to see. The Borg are kind of going into a little bit of hibernation at the moment, or we can say their regeneration cycle. They don't really expand too much for the next little bit, but definitely keep an eye on them because that's going to be changing. They will be expanding kind of peacefully, using construction ships and things like that, but there's not going to be as much conflict as you would expect with the Borg. So while we're waiting for something a little bit more interesting to happen rather than just kind of expanding peacefully, the way that I create these multiplayer games, the way that I create these time lapses is actually through the multiplayer feature in Star Trek New Horizons and in the base game Stellaris. So what you can do is you can click on play multiplayer, but rather than setting a public game, all you need to do is set a private game, and then in that screen, just don't select an empire, and it will leave you in observer mode. So when you're in observer mode, you will then be able to see everything. If you wanted to, you could also click, for example, on Herojan's Hunters and see all of the information about them and see their scores. Now here, Herojan Hunters, we now have an emblem again, another icon, down in the lower left-hand corner of Herojan space. I think again that currently is just a bit of territory that is not fully connected. However, have you noticed something? Something's changed? Well, for a split second there was a Unimatrix 0, which we see in Star Trek Voyager, which are the Borg drone causing a civil war-like event. Unfortunately, it did not go very, very well in this playthrough. However, that is not the big surprise that is coming. I do promise there is one, and it's definitely not anything you would have ever guessed. Anyway, so we see that the Krenim are still expanding. They're kind of heading in the east and kind of northeast directions, whereas the Borg, ironically, have gone kind of western, northwestern so far. And the Herojan are just like, nope, we'll take everything. We'll basically take the southern half of the map. That is where we are heading at the moment. So they're expanding both eastwards and westwards and southwards as well. You may also notice, if you're looking at some of the fleets, that there are a lot of fleets going between the Krenim and the Borg space. This is not necessarily because there's a war or anything going on. It's just the fact that the Borg cannot close their borders to anyone. So, and it happens to be that the Krenim, which are now kind of have this horseshoe shape around the Borg, or you could say that the Borg have kind of pushed into the Krenim with that war that they had, it's easier to fly across Borg space. And of course, because they're not at war, there is no danger, they're not going to be assimilated, the Krenim don't need to worry about that. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump the video forward ahead a little bit so we can see something a little bit more interesting that happens. What the empires are going to continue expanding, and when something interesting happens, we are going to pick up. So I will see you in a second. Okay, and we are back. So this is just before something interesting starts to happen. As you can see, we're about I think it's about 50 to 75 years in the future, or from where we left off, and something very, very interesting has just happened. Do you notice? If you notice anything change, can you see it? So if you're counting the icons, we've got the Krenim Imperium, they've got one at the top, we've got the Borg Collective in the middle, who've kind of expanded east and west. They've also got one icon. We've got the Herojan Hunters in the south. They've still got two icons, so they've built this kind of, put an enclave down there, or kind of a isolated set of systems, which is why, again, they have that second one. But you might have noticed there's now in the center, kind of between the Borg Collective and the Herojan, there's a new icon, and it doesn't look like a tiny version of any of the other icons. So I really wonder what that might be. At this zoom resolution, you can't read it. When I was kind of watching this as it was recording, I was also like, ooh, I really want to touch it, I really want to zoom in and see what it is, because it's not Herojan Hunters, it's not Borg Collective, it's not the Krenim. Has like an event fired, has basically what's happened? Why is there suddenly kind of a fourth entity on the map? Yeah, unfortunately in this view, so whenever you are the observer here, you can't change for a time lapse, you cannot change the camera angles, or then things will start randomly fluctuating. But you might notice something now, I mean that huge change that we just saw, that might give you a better idea of what might be happening. So we've gone from kind of one emblem in kind of one system to a lot of smaller emblems in a lot of several systems, and lots of color changes as well. So the Herojan Hunters are this dark kind of reddish brown color, maroon I think you'd say, and this new one is kind of this purplish color. And now we can actually read the name because they've taken enough territory. It's called the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge. So basically what that means is that there was a revolt in a place called the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge, and a new country was created out of that. So they successfully revolted, or they successfully survived a civil war, and more than just successfully surviving, they are absolutely thriving. So they are yeah, they've basically taken over most of the Herodian Hunters space. Herodian Hunters do still exist, still with their original ethos and all of that, so nothing has changed there. But this kind of, let's call it a separatist movement, if you will, has been created and has taken a lot of former Herodian Hunter territory. It's not going to stop the Herodian Hunters, they're still expanding in the directions that they can. However, we also notice, so the Borg have started to expand a little bit northwards as well. They have been blocked off by the Krenim, but there has been a bit of back and forth in exchanging of territory there as well. Not sure if you've noticed that. But the Borg are kind of reaching their limit for going east and west. So hopefully very soon, the AI will actually start playing the Borg the way that they're supposed to be played, and how they were actually played in the original match that we did a couple of weeks ago on this channel. And will actually start kind of attacking and assimilating, which they have not really been doing much of. There's another, yeah, so Free Borg, so there was another, so we had the Unimatrix 0 that happened before the cut that I put in. We then had the Free Borg that happened just now, which unfortunately they didn't succeed, but the Borg have had two kind of Civil Wars breakaway rebel factions that have fired in this game, which is absolutely great, because usually in most games they only have one, they only have Unimatrix 0. Sometimes you do get the Free Borg one instead, or you'd get one of the other variants. However, that has not happened this time. We've had two instead. So the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge really expanding well. So they've kind of taken over, I mean, both they and the Herodian Hunters are still peacefully expanding, but they've basically kind of taken over, because they now, of course, have all of the resources with the massive expansion in the south. The Herodian Hunters are now really kind of mostly single or 2 or 3 system enclaves within the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge, with, of course, the exception on the kind of western front, where we actually have the largest of the Herodian Hunters icons there. Borg still very peaceful, really a little bit disappointed by the Borg's performance in this what's supposed to be kind of a free-for-all 1v1v1 match, and the Borg haven't been very warlike, which is surprising. Not necessarily surprising. So there are basically 2 reasons why this might be. The Borg might be peaceful simply because, well, the AI is not doing a great job about recognizing that the Borg need to assimilate, that they need to be go-getters, that they need to kind of steamroll the people around them, which is what happened in the original match that we did. So the Borg quickly took out the Krenim, and then the Herodian weren't really a match for the kind of this now very massive, powerful Borg collective. And so it overwhelmed them within the first 100 years or so. We're not seeing that this time, and that could just be because the AI is not playing them well. Conversely, and the one that I think is actually more likely, the option or the scenario that I think is more likely, is that the Herodian Hunters and the Krenim are being played very, very well by the AI, so much so that the Borg AI, or the AI that's running the Borg, looks at those, evaluates its chances based on the numbers, and goes, you know what, I don't think that's worth it. I don't think I can win a war. I don't think fighting is worth it. So that's probably why the Borg aren't attacking. And part of the reason that I say that is, while I've been speaking, you might have noticed that the Herodian Hunters and the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge have had another war, and it gone back and forth and exchanged some territories. So the Herodian Hunters have, basically the outcome of that war, they've gained some more territory. Their little enclaves that were 1 system have now grown to 2, 3, or 4 systems. In the western side, we've got this now it's kind of really funky horseshoe shape kind of enclave as well, that was taken from the Republic of Mace, or former Republic of Mace territory. And it's almost linked up with the, oh sorry, it has now, just looking at the colors, it has now linked up with the other enclave that was in the west. So that's kind of, that western part has become their main bit of territory. The Borg have done great inroads into peaceful expansion in this game, especially to the east. If you can see, they've now reached the edge of the map over there. For some reason, and I don't really know why, they kind of jumped across those nebula systems there and colonized the very edge of the map. Or not colonized, but it claimed the edge of the built outposts at the edge of the map, and now kind of are working their way back to the main body of Borg space. I think that might be because there are some systems called the Void, which are extremely difficult to enter and to exit, and they take forever to traverse. I think it's like -1000 to warp speed and to sublight speed. Makes it extremely difficult for anyone to go through them, and so it's actually easier to go around them. So I think the Borg might have gone that way, and now they're kind of working their way back. But as you can see, that blob is moving. So the Republic of Mace has taken some territory back, but they've also on the eastern side they've taken it back, but on the western side they've also lost some more systems. So as we can see, that kind of smallish horseshoe shape that the Herodian Hunters had is now completely it's gone, because they've taken all of the systems around it. So now it's just a large blob, and they've got kind of a little finger in towards the lower center of the map as well. The Republic of Mace, though, definitely seems to be doing well. They've taken some more territory on the eastern side, so we're kind of setting up a little bit more of an east-west balance. Although, of course, the Herodian Hunters do have kind of an enclave in the far east as well. So it looks like there is a lot of movement from the Borg as well. They've just a lot of fleets are kind of following each other. I'm not really sure what kind of ships those are. I wish in observer mode you could see a little bit more information about ship movements in general. So as we can see, it's all that yellow unknown ship icon with a question mark. And if you were to know about it, it would then be blue or green or whatever or red, for example, if it's an enemy. But it would then also give you like the science icon for a science ship, or a like stars for military ships or things like that. And I wish in observer mode we could see that, because we could click anywhere and get the information from the perspective of that place, but there's no one place to see all information everywhere, which I do understand would be a lot of work. Speaking of a lot of work, it looks like the Herodian Hunters have again gone to war with the Republic of Mace, so their logo design has changed, so I will absolutely forgive you if you did not see that change. But they've taken some more territory. They've fought another war against the Republic of Mace to take that territory, and so it's really kind of setting up this kind of east-west balance, if you will, at the moment. Yeah, so the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge now have 3 kind of individual system territories in the northwestern part of their space. The Borg, however, rather than fighting, still really loving that peaceful expansion route, still enjoying, well, that they've kind of broken out of being sandwiched between the Krenim and the Herodian empires in the south. I'm really enjoying that eastern edge of the map and just expanding as much as they can, which, I mean, I guess good for them. However, it looks like, where is that long train, that long conga of ships that are currently kind of in the eastern portion? Oh, I see. Okay, so it looks like those are Herodian hunter fleets, and the Republic of Mace, of course, have closed their borders, which means that the Herodian hunter fleets, whenever they move, now have to go around that, and that means through Borg space. The Borg also look like they are still expanding to the west as well. Although I'm actually wondering, there's a lot of movement in that western portion. I'm wondering if the Krenim and the Herodian Hunters are fighting a war? Because it's not the Borg. The Borg, whenever they fight a war, you see them... Speaking of, whenever you see them fight a war, you see the systems automatically transfer because of the type of empire that they are. Oh, and that is... we've now reached 2450, which was the cutoff for, this game that I set. So, very interesting game. I was definitely not expecting the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge empire to come out like that. In fact, their score is not necessarily very high, so we can see kind of the Borg at the very, very top. The Voth, I will absolutely forgive you if you did not see the Voth. They're at the very, very northern edge of the map in the very center. It's a little bit of white with a very, very tiny icon. They don't do anything in the entire game. Also the Herc and the Quomar, they literally have one system and they sit there. The Voth you can see, I didn't even notice where the Herc and the Quomar are on this map. So if we kind of remove those three, we have the Borg in first place, we have the Krenim in second place, and we have the Hirogen Hunters in third place. And just below that, if I were to scroll, there should be the Republic of Mace Hunters Lodge, with a similar kind of score and economy to the Hirogen Hunters as well, being of a similar size, and having kind of fought wars to stalemates and to and gaining and losing territory kind of in equal measure. Thank you very much for watching this time lapse. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it and commenting about it. If you'd like to support me, definitely please remember to give me a thumbs up, or give this video a thumbs up, and to subscribe to my channel. That would be great. I also have a Discord server if you are interested in interacting with people who are of like minds and who also follow my content. The link for that is in the description below. And yeah, I think that's everything for this video, so I do hope you've enjoyed it. If so, as I said, please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time for another episode of Jamie Plays. Bye for now.